Have you ever felt like your life is constantly spinning, juggling responsibilities, chasing goals, reacting to a world that never seems to slow down? It's easy to lose ourselves in the noise. But what if, within that very chaos, there's a door? A door not to escape, but to go inward, to find a stillness that doesn't depend on perfect circumstances. This isn't just wishful thinking. For over 2,500 years, Buddhist wisdom has pointed us toward that stillness. Not by controlling life, but by flowing with it. At the heart of this wisdom is a powerful idea: detachment. Now don't get me wrong, detachment doesn't mean apathy. It doesn't mean we stop caring or that we walk away from the people and things we love. It means loving without clinging. It means understanding that everything in life, joy, sorrow, success, failure, is temporary. And when we truly grasp that truth, something amazing happens. We begin to breathe easier. We begin to live freer. In this video, we're going to explore what detachment really is. Not as a cold spiritual concept, but as a daily practice for those of us navigating modern life. We'll explore how to stop fighting reality, how to accept what we cannot change, and how to trust that what's meant for us will find us, often at the right time, in the most unexpected way. Through ancient parables, real-life reflections, and moments of quiet truth, we'll walk a path toward inner peace, clarity, and self-discovery. So if you're ready to stop clinging, if you're tired of feeling stuck, if you're longing for peace that lasts longer than a vacation or a motivational quote, this journey is for you. Let's begin. There's an old Buddhist story that I keep coming back to because it's so simple and yet so quietly powerful. A young monk was once given a beautiful porcelain cup by his teacher. It was delicate, elegant, and carried great meaning. He treasured it deeply, admiring it often, careful not to let anything happen to it. One day, while cleaning, the cup slipped from his hands and shattered on the stone floor. Heartbroken, the monk stared at the broken pieces, filled with regret. But his master, calm and unwavering, simply said, "That cup was already broken." At first, those words seem cold, but in reality, they carry a profound truth, one that can reshape how we live, love, and let go. You see, impermanence isn't a flaw in life, it is life. Everything, our possessions, our relationships, our bodies, even our identities, are always changing, always moving. Trying to freeze life into permanence is like trying to hold a river in your hands. And that's where detachment comes in. Now I know, the word detachment can sound harsh. It might make you think of emotional numbness or turning your back on the people and things you care about, but that's not what it means, not in Buddhism and not in real life. Detachment isn't about caring less. It's about loving more freely, without trying to possess, control, or cling. Think about how often we hold on to things out of fear. Fear of losing, fear of change, fear of being alone. We cling to relationships that no longer bring us peace. We replay memories like old home movies, hoping to relive a moment that's already gone. We grip expectations so tightly, they leave bruises on our hearts. And in doing so, we suffer. But what if we chose instead to open our hands and trust that what's meant to stay will stay, and what's meant to go will go? Detachment is a kind of courage. It's the willingness to say, I will love this moment, this person, this chapter, and I will also let it go when it's time. Like a river that flows without clinging to its water, we can learn to move with life instead of constantly resisting it. So here's a question worth sitting with today. What am I holding on to that's already broken? And what freedom might I find if I simply let it go? Because sometimes peace doesn't come from getting more, but from holding less. Have you ever found yourself thinking, this isn't how my life was supposed to be? Maybe it's a job that no longer fulfills you, a relationship that feels more like tension than connection, or a moment where things just don't make sense. You look around and think, this isn't the plan. This wasn't the deal. There's an old story from Buddhist tradition that captures this feeling. A disciple came to his master, full of frustration and sorrow. He said, "Master, I suffer because life isn't how I want it to be. The master smiled softly and replied, "You suffer because you resist what is." And just like that, the truth lands. So often, it's not the situation that causes our suffering. It's our resistance to it. We hold on to how things should be. We fight reality with expectations. We live inside a mental version of life, not the one unfolding right in front of us. But here's the thing. Acceptance doesn't mean giving up. It doesn't mean becoming passive or helpless. It means seeing clearly, without filters, without denial. Acceptance is choosing to face what is, even when it's not what we hoped for. Imagine an archer, focused, trained, ready. He releases the arrow with precision, but no matter how skilled he is, he can't control the wind. He can't control whether the target moves. What he can do is adjust, re-aim, try again. That's the power of acceptance. When we stop wishing life were different and start responding to life as it is, something inside us softens. We move from reactivity to presence. We stop wasting energy fighting the unchangeable and start focusing on what we can actually do. But let's go even deeper. Acceptance isn't just about the world out there. Sometimes, the hardest thing to accept is ourselves, our past, our flaws, our failures, the things we wish we could undo. And yet, healing doesn't come from fighting who we are. It comes from embracing ourselves, mess and all. Because here's the paradox. Only when we accept reality can we begin to change it. And only when we accept ourselves can we begin to grow. So next time you feel the urge to fight reality, to resist the moment, pause and ask, what if I stopped trying to fix everything and started to see it for what it is? Because sometimes the path to peace isn't in changing the world. It's in making peace with it. Have you ever gone through something that felt devastating at the time, only to look back months or even years later and realize, if that hadn't happened, I wouldn't be where I am now? That's the quiet wisdom of life. And sometimes it takes time and distance to see it. There's an old story from Buddhist tradition that captures this perfectly. A monk lived in a remote village, alone and content. One morning, a wild horse wandered into his garden, strong, beautiful, untamed. The villagers came rushing over. "This is amazing," they said. "What luck! You've been blessed." But the monk only smiled and said, "Luck or misfortune, who knows?" A few days later, his son tried to ride the wild horse and was thrown off, breaking his leg. The same villagers returned, shaking their heads. "What terrible luck," they said. Again, the monk replied, "Luck or misfortune, who knows?" Soon after, war broke out. Every young man in the village was drafted, except for the monk's son, who couldn't serve because of his injury. And once again, the villagers said, "You're so lucky." And once again, the monk simply said, "Luck or misfortune, who knows?" It's a simple story, but within it lies something deeply liberating. We don't always see the full picture when things are happening. We're quick to label moments as good or bad, fortunate or unfair. But life doesn't play out in isolated moments. It's all connected. What feels like loss may become protection. What feels like failure may turn out to be redirection. Here's another story, this one about a butterfly. A man once saw a butterfly struggling to break free from its cocoon. Wanting to help, he gently cut it open. The butterfly emerged easily, but its wings were weak. It never flew. What the man didn't realize is that the struggle was necessary. It was what strengthened the wings for flight. How often do we try to fix life, rush the process, force answers, remove the struggle? But sometimes, the struggle is shaping us, strengthening us, and trying to escape it too soon only keeps us from growing wings. This is the heart of trusting life, not because it's always easy or fair, but because it's always unfolding, often not on our timeline, but always with deeper meaning, even if we can't see it yet. So the next time you're tempted to judge a moment as bad luck, pause, breathe, and remember, luck or misfortune, who knows? Sometimes what feels like the end is actually where something new begins. Have you ever tried to sit still, and suddenly realize just how loud your mind really is? It's like this never-ending stream of thoughts, bouncing from your to-do list to that thing you said 5 years ago, to what might go wrong tomorrow. You sit down for peace, but all you get is noise. There's a Buddhist story that speaks directly to this. A disciple once told his master, "Master, my thoughts are like a storm. I can't find peace. The harder I try, the worse it gets." The master smiled, handed him a glass of muddy water and said, "Shake it." The student did. "Now," the master said, "put it down and wait." Slowly, the dirt began to settle. And as the water cleared, the master said, "This is your mind. You don't need to fight the storm. Just let it settle." That's the heart of meditation. Not stopping your thoughts, not forcing yourself into silence, but gently observing, without judgment, and allowing things to settle on their own. In a world that constantly demands our attention, news, notifications, non-stop schedules, meditation offers something rare: a pause, a breath, a return to stillness. And here's the thing, science backs this up. Meditation has been shown to reduce stress, improve focus, strengthen the immune system, and even reshape the brain's response to fear and anxiety. But beyond the benefits, it gives us something even more valuable: clarity. Because when we're constantly reacting, rushing, planning, we stop hearing our own inner voice. Meditation brings us back to now, back to breath, back to what really matters. You don't need hours. You don't need incense or special music. You don't even need to do it perfectly. You just need a moment, even 5 minutes, to sit, breathe, and notice. Start simple. Sit comfortably, close your eyes, and bring your attention to your breath, in and out. Don't try to control it, just notice it. Your mind will wander, that's okay. That's what minds do. When you notice it drifting, just gently return to the breath. It's not about staying perfectly focused. It's about coming back again and again. That's the practice. You can also try gratitude meditation, just taking a few minutes to reflect on what you're thankful for, no matter how small. Or a simple letting go visualization. Imagine yourself holding something heavy in your hands, and with each exhale, gently releasing it. These tiny practices, done daily, begin to shift something deep inside. Little by little, the water clears, the mind settles, and in that quiet space, we begin to hear the wisdom that was always there. So maybe the question isn't, can I stop thinking? But rather, can I sit with myself exactly as I am and just breathe? Because sometimes, that's all it takes to come home to peace. Have you ever stood by a river and just watched it flow? It doesn't rush, it doesn't panic, it doesn't resist the rocks or try to change its course. It just flows around, over, through whatever is in its path. Graceful, effortless, unbothered. There's a quiet wisdom in that, and yet most of us, we don't live like rivers. We try to control everything. Our relationships, our future, the opinions of others. We make plans, backup plans, and then backup plans for the backup plans. We think if we just try hard enough, plan far enough, control every variable, we'll be safe, we'll be happy, we'll finally feel at peace. But peace doesn't come from control. Peace comes from trust. There's a Buddhist parable about a man who was hanging onto the branch of a tree at the edge of a cliff. He was exhausted, terrified, holding on for dear life. What he didn't know, what he couldn't see, was that just beneath him was solid ground. If he had let go, he would have been safe, but fear kept him stuck. And isn't that how we all live sometimes? We cling to jobs that no longer inspire us. We hold on to relationships out of habit or fear of being alone. We grip tightly to expectations, outcomes, and identities, even when they make us miserable. Why? Because the unknown scares us. Because uncertainty feels dangerous. Because we're told that control equals safety. But here's the truth. Life is never fully in our control. And the more we resist that, the more we suffer. The key is not to give up. It's to let go of the illusion that we can control everything. When we learn to live like the river, something beautiful happens. We stop forcing, we stop fearing, and we start trusting. Trusting that life, like the river, has a flow. And that flow is wiser than our plans. That's not to say we don't try or dream or act, But we act from trust, not anxiety. From alignment, not fear. It's like planting a seed. You do your part, nurture it, water it, but you don't rip it out of the ground every day to check if it's growing. You trust the process. You let nature do its thing. So the next time you find yourself obsessing, tightening, clinging, ask yourself, am I holding on, or is it time to let go? Because just beneath the branch you're clinging to, there might be solid ground. And you'll never know until you release and let life catch you. Have you ever carried something for so long you forgot what it felt like to be free? Not something physical, but something heavier. A mistake you made years ago. Words you wish you could take back. The guilt that creeps in when you're alone with your thoughts. There's a Buddhist story that says, if a bird breaks its own wing for having flown imperfectly, how can it ever fly again? Guilt is like that. It makes us punish ourselves for falling instead of learning how to rise. And the truth is, we're often kinder to strangers than we are to ourselves. We forgive others, offer them patience, understanding, second chances. But to ourselves, we demand perfection. We replay our failures on a loop. We carry them like a sack of stones on our back. Heavy, exhausting, unnecessary. There's a parable about a man who walks for years carrying a bag filled with rocks. Each stone represents a grudge, a regret, a resentment. He refuses to let go. But it's not until a monk stops him and asks, why do you carry what you no longer need? That he realizes the weight was never required to move forward. That's what compassion is. It's not softness, it's strength. The strength to say, I am human. I have made mistakes, but I am still worthy of love. Buddhism teaches a powerful practice called metta bhavana, the meditation of loving kindness. It begins simply, quietly. May I be happy, may I be safe, may I be at peace. At first it feels strange. You might even resist it. Who am I to wish myself well? But here's the thing, if you can't offer love inward, it becomes harder to give it outward. You can't pour from an empty cup, and when you start practicing this kindness towards yourself, you begin to see others differently too. Their anger becomes fear, their harshness becomes hurt, and your response, instead of reaction, becomes compassion. Now let's be clear, compassion doesn't mean excusing what harms you. It doesn't mean staying in toxic relationships or accepting mistreatment. It means choosing peace over punishment, especially when the one you're punishing is you. Because anger, resentment, guilt, these emotions might feel like armor, but they're actually chains. Letting go doesn't make you weak, it sets you free. So today, maybe ask yourself, what weight am I still carrying that I no longer need? And maybe, just maybe, it's time to set it down. There's a story I love, quiet, simple, but it stays with you. A young student once asked his master, "Master, how long will it take me to reach enlightenment?" The master looked at him and replied, "If you rush, it will take longer." At first, the student didn't understand, but isn't that the way life is? We live in a world obsessed with speed, quick fixes, fast results, instant clarity. But some things, the most meaningful things, can't be rushed. Inner peace, self-awareness, letting go, they don't arrive overnight. They arrive slowly, silently, through small choices we make every day. So, if you're on this path, the path of Buddhist teachings, or simply the path of becoming more present, more alive, the question isn't, how fast can I get there? It's, how can I live this today, even just a little? Because the real transformation doesn't happen in temples or retreats. It happens in your morning routine, in how you speak to your partner when you're tired, in the way you treat yourself when no one's watching. Here are 6 small practices, 6 doors you can open, one moment at a time. First, detachment, not out of fear, but out of love. Enjoy people, things, and moments deeply, but hold them gently. Love them, but don't grip them. Because when we hold too tight, we don't protect, we suffocate. Second, radical acceptance. Ask yourself, what am I resisting right now? Maybe it's a situation you can't change, or a version of yourself you wish was different. Acceptance doesn't mean giving up. It means beginning where you are, not where you wish you were. Third, trust the process of life. Not everything will make sense today, but that doesn't mean it's meaningless. Sometimes the pieces don't come together until much later. So instead of asking, why is this happening to me? Try asking, what might this be preparing me for? Fourth, meditate, even for 5 minutes. Not to escape your life, but to meet it more clearly. Sit, breathe, listen. That's it. You'll be amazed what a few quiet minutes can shift in your day. Fifth, let go of control. Do your best, yes, but don't force the outcome. Some of the best things in life come not when you push, but when you pause. And finally, sixth, practice compassion. Not just in grand gestures, but in quiet moments. A kind word, a soft tone. Forgiveness, even if the other person never says sorry. And above all, show compassion to yourself. Because your growth, your becoming, is not a straight line. So no, you don't need to be perfect. You don't need to have it all figured out. You just need to begin, again and again, gently, with presence, with trust. Because as the Master said, if you rush, it will take longer. But if you walk with patience, you may just get there sooner than you think. There's something quietly powerful about this moment. Right here, right now. But most of us miss it. We're either chasing what's next or replaying what's already gone. Worrying about tomorrow's meeting, rehearsing a conversation that ended years ago, living in a place that doesn't even exist. The mind's version of the past or future. And yet, all we ever really have is now. That's what presence teaches us, that this breath, this moment, this heartbeat is enough. It sounds simple, maybe even cliche, but it's also life-changing. Because when we live in the present, something begins to shift. Fear softens, because fear lives in the future. Regret fades, because regret lives in the past. And what's left is clarity, calm, and the chance to actually live. You may have heard the word mindfulness used a lot lately, but it's not some exotic practice or complicated ritual. It's just paying attention to what's happening, as it's happening, without judgment, without resistance. When we're mindful, we stop reacting out of habit and start responding with wisdom. We notice that we're getting irritated before we lash out. We catch ourselves spiraling in worry before it swallows our peace. And maybe most importantly, we begin to find the sacred in the small. A breath becomes a prayer. A walk becomes a meditation. A simple conversation becomes connection. That's the real secret of presence. It transforms the ordinary into something meaningful. And in that quiet awareness, we realize something profound. Enlightenment isn't a destination. It's not something we chase. It's how we show up, fully, gently, right now. You don't need a silent retreat or a perfect routine. You don't need to escape your life to find peace. You just need to arrive in this moment, as it is, as you are. So maybe today, try this. Take a deep breath, feel your feet on the ground, listen, really listen to the sound around you. Because this is where your life is happening. Not later, not someday, but now. Have you ever told yourself, I'll finally be at peace when I'm more disciplined, when I stop making mistakes, when I get it all together? We wait for some future version of ourselves, more productive, more enlightened, more perfect, before we allow ourselves to breathe, to rest, to feel enough. But here's the quiet truth no one told us growing up. Perfection is an illusion. It doesn't exist. And chasing it only delays the peace we're already capable of experiencing right now. Growth is not a straight line. It's a spiral. Sometimes we feel like we're circling back to old patterns, but we're not the same person. We're arriving with a little more awareness, a little more wisdom, a little more grace. Think about it. Every real lesson you've learned probably didn't come from a perfect decision. It came from a mistake, from a moment that stretched you, broke you, or humbled you. Maybe you said something you regret. Maybe you failed at something you tried really hard for. Maybe you slipped back into an old habit you thought you had already overcome. And in that moment, your inner critic probably showed up. You know the voice, the one that says, you should be better than this by now. But what if you responded differently? What if instead of judgment, you offered yourself kindness? Because here's the thing, real transformation doesn't come from being hard on ourselves. It comes from being consistent. and compassionate. From getting up one more time, from trying again, even after we fall, from loving ourselves not just when we're shining, but especially when we're struggling. There's a Japanese art called kintsugi. Maybe you've heard of it. It's the practice of repairing broken pottery with gold. Instead of hiding the cracks, they highlight them, because the object is more beautiful for having been broken. What if we saw ourselves that way? Not as projects to be perfected, but as stories to be honored, cracks and all. So, today, give yourself permission to be messy, to grow in your own timing, to speak gently to yourself, especially on the hard days. Because you're not here to be perfect, you're here to be real. And real is where the magic lives. So maybe you've heard it said that enlightenment is like a lightning bolt, sudden, powerful, transformational. But here's the truth no one tells you. Enlightenment isn't instant, it's a journey. It's not about reaching some perfect version of yourself. It's about remembering, again and again, to return to what matters, to slow down, to listen, to breathe. The teachings of Buddhism were never meant to be locked away in ancient texts or dusty temples. They were meant to be lived in traffic, in messy kitchens, in the hard conversations, in the quiet mornings. Buddhism isn't just an idea. It's a way of moving through life with more awareness, more compassion, more courage to let go, and more trust to begin again. And the most beautiful part, you don't need to be ready. You don't need the perfect meditation cushion or a 10-step routine or a flawless past. You just need a moment of willingness to pause, to reflect, to choose, maybe just for today, to live a little more gently. Each new day is another chance to loosen your grip on control, to notice your breath, to forgive yourself for being human, to love the life that's already here, even if it's not perfect. Because that's what the journey really is. Not a destination far away, but a deepening into who you already are. So if this message resonated with you, subscribe to join us on this path of mindfulness and meaning. Drop a comment. Which teaching spoke to your heart most today? And keep exploring, because the journey isn't linear, but it is yours. We'll be right here walking it with you, one mindful step at a time.